Being 7 o'clock, I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. If I could I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and opposed? Are there any walk-ins tonight? Bill, right? Mr. Graham? Could you come forward? Bill, I'm just gonna remind you and whomever that we limited these to 5 minutes.
Right.
We can't take any votes.
Okay.
And especially tonight, because I have a 7:05 hearing, I don't think that
Okay.
block is exactly right. So if I could kind of stick to that,
Sure.
I would appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the time.
You're welcome.
I'm Bill Graham, 14 Tilden Ave. I have Beth McGrath here of 20 Tilden Ave, and Tom Lunny, 125 Glades Road. And the reason we came is we're concerned about a vote that was taken on October 1st allowing parking on Glades Road. And from what I could get of the television meeting, you authorized parking on Glades Road from 107 to 133. We're neighbors in the area, and it's a concern to us that this vote was taken when it wasn't listed on the agenda to be heard that night. And therefore, we couldn't be there to present our objections to the parking that you allowed. The area under consideration is a safety zone and a recreational area such as walking, jogging, pushing carriages, and beach carts, as well as riding bicycles, bird watching, and dog walking. It's a very busy area, especially in the summertime. When walking inside the yellow line against the wall, people feel safe as this area is out of the path of cars. In the proposed plan, part of the walking area would be replaced with parked cars. There would be a 5-foot walking path along the opposite side of the road, which is the house side of the road. And this is a problem because there's no protection for the people walking. There's approximately 15 driveways that turn in off of that road into the properties. So you'd be having cars coming and going over the proposed sidewalk or walking trail area. It's a very dangerous condition. We would like the vote to be rescinded on the parking and put a hold on it until the neighborhood meetings could be held and we could meet with the town and the town planners.
All right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to address, I can't remember what was voted in October like you cited.
Okay.
If it was done in error, I'll correct it, all right? And if it was, and I know this this topic that you're talking about has been before traffic rules.
Yes.
And is going to be discussed at their next meeting. I'm a little familiar, I've seen you at the traffic rules meeting, I'm just a little familiar with the situation down there on Glades Road with some matching FEMA funds and so
Yep.
forth, but I don't want to get into it tonight. I've heard what you said, and I will talk to Kevin Cafferty. I've talked to him earlier today, and I'll
Yep.
meet with him again. I will check with our secretary to make sure if we did something wrong, if it wasn't advertised, but I find it hard to believe if it wasn't on our agenda.
There was other traffic conditions listed on the agenda, but Glades Road was not listed.
All right, okay, well, like I said, I can't remember.
Yep.
And we can easily fix that.
I don't think we voted on it.
I
Discussed
think
it
we
at
did.
length for a long
It's a
time.
3-2 vote.
Yeah, I think we did. That was the one we
You
did.
tabled all the others, but you voted that one.
We voted that one.
Mr. Murray and I voted.
Okay, was that, do you recall, and was that specifically on the agenda, Glades Road?
Yes, it was.
was.
I'm told it was, but I would
And
rely
that's-
on.
and that's,
yeah.
you know,
we can look into this.
You know, and it's
Yeah,
not,
but we have
nothing's
to-
done, nothing's etched in
Yeah.
stone, you know, I know, Kim has told me that you've, contacted Town Hall, and we'll continue this, because we want to do it right,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, all the neighbors down there, we've got 60 neighbors in a quarter-mile strip. Most of the lots are undersized lots. It was all developed before zoning. So there's very little play area in the yards and so forth. And kids use that area to ride their bikes. They play catch there. They bounce balls off the wall. They do a lot of recreational
I'm sure.
activities.
I'm sure they do.
And to take a recreational activity away to allow additional parking, it doesn't seem right. The people have had problems with parking down there in the past, that there's been rowdy people who park against the wall, drink fluids or liquids or whatever there, and raise hell, and the people asked the town to put up the no parking signs, and you did. And so that's the situation we have.
Look into it.
Can I just
Okay,
add?
yep, all right,
We'll look into it.
And it's
just make it
Yep,
quick.
and it's not just the neighbors. Like, everyone walks down there. I don't know if you're, where you live, but
Okay.
on any given day, this morning, there were people out there walking. So it is part of
It's
the
a
neighborhood.
it's a
the
recreational area, and the people
why don't we
come
focus-
down
But let me
there.
just say this, the flip side of the coin, it could be more of a recreational area if John were to bring his son and kayak down there and wanted a place to park, then he's more able to do that, or anybody from the West End, or go fish for an hour or something like that, so, there's
But
two
there's
sides
no-
to the
but-
coin.
right.
Well, let's just
But-
discuss it.
Yeah, no, and I don't want to get
But,
into a
yes,
big
okay.
discussion tonight, but I heard you,
Bill.
and we'll.
I think our goal would be to have everybody be heard. I don't know what the
That's right.
decision's gonna be, but if you guys don't feel
Absolutely.
like you got a good enough
Absolutely.
opinion in, then we'll certainly open it up for more discussion.
Well, we're told that we're gonna be involved in the decision, and then all of a sudden I
Well,
hear
I-
it being voted on, and
Bill, we got
got
it.
alarmed about it.
Yep.
Like I said, the next traffic rules meeting, this will be discussed.
Great.
All right?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
you.
Mr. Chair, one
Sure,
thing.
Rick.
Along the lines of the traffic rules, it would be very helpful if we could make sure their agenda listed by address by address, exactly what subjects they were talking about.
Okay. All right.
If we could make sure that the Traffic Rules and Regulation Committee
Okay.
post their
On their
meetings.
agenda
On
items.
their
Okay,
agenda
all
items.
right, perfect.
That would be very helpful.
Good. Are there any other walk-ins tonight? Okay. We do have a 7:05 public hearing to set the residential factor. We do this annually. And this seems to be a little more backup than we've seen in the past. And I don't want to, you guys came special tonight and be on TV, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but also I'll just turn it over to you. It's pretty straightforward, but you might want to talk about, it looks like you've compared us with some other towns and percentage of commercial property and all that stuff. Floor's all yours.
So, good evening, gentlemen. I'm Steve Gard, the Chairman of the Board of Assessors. With me is our Assessor, Steve Jazrambowski, and Board Member Todd Glowak and Fred Avila. As you know, tonight is the night that we come with a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen relative to whether we do a split rate or a single rate, a factor of 1. The Board of Assessors has saw fit and voted unanimously to recommend that we do a single rate this year again, factor of 1. The materials that Steve Jazrambowski prepared the first page is very similar to last year. As you can see, the different shift percentages that we would benefit by having a split rate would affect, say, a 5% shift at a $14 a year savings versus a commercial burden of $452 to the commercial. And the one that I think is probably the most telling is the 10% shift, where you're burdening the commercial taxpayers to $904 versus a $28 savings. The number in the first column is the average assessment.
Steve, can I stop you for 1
Sure.
second? I think technically, don't we have to read the notice?
Oh, did you?
Okay. All right, I was gonna do it before we took the vote, but
Yep.
if
All
you
right.
just give us 1 second.
Yep,
the
notice
clerk
of
read
public
it.
hearing, Town of Scituate, and property setting the residential factor. The Town of Scituate will hold a public hearing in the Selectmen's Chambers, Town Hall, Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Scituate, Mass. on Tuesday, November 12th, 2013, at 7:05 PM for the purpose of obtaining written and oral comment from the public on the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of property. The residential factor adopted by a community governs the percentage of the tax levy to be borne by the residential property owners. The statutory minimum is 65% of the minimum residential factor set by the Commissioner. Persons attending the hearing shall have the right to provide written and oral comments and suggestions regarding property classification. Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Marty. Sorry about that, Steve.
I get to start over again, right?
Yeah.
So, page 2 is a comparison of the surrounding communities, the residential percentage versus the commercial percentage, and then whether or not that town does a split rate. As you can see, the town of Hanover is the only one that actually does do a split rate, and I think it's pretty obvious why. They have such a tremendously large commercial base, 19%. The only second to Plymouth, but I think that Plymouth still continues with a single rate for two reasons. One is they're trying to develop further growth, and I think a single rate does that. But they also have the power plant, which would then just pass along that tax rate to the taxpayers, which leads me to our situation in Scituate, where because our commercial, the commercial component to our tax base is essentially owned by people who live here, people who work here, it would be passing a tax savings on one hand to a tax burden on the other to the same people. We don't have nationally owned commercial real estate where we could, grab some income or some influx of income from an outside source, where basically would be burdening the people that here are working for us as residents, and then, of course, paying also residential tax. So the board, like I said, the board unanimously voted to continue the single rate for the town of Scituate.
Any comments or questions?
Just a couple comments. I think this information is great. I think, Steve, you keep adding to the information that you give us every year. Steve Gard mentioned the percentages, which is always very interesting because we're always up against that burden of being a very small commercial base. When you look at our surrounding communities, Cohasset is 7%. We're at 5%, by the way. Cohasset's at 7, Duxbury's at 4, Marshfield's at 8. And then these other communities that we compare ourselves to, like Hanover, Hingham, Kingston, and Norwell, are kind of unfair advantages. I mean, Hanover's got the mall in 3A, Hingham has Derby Street and the shipyard, Kingston has the malls and stuff, and then Norwell has all of 3A. So, so we're not the only people in this same problem in turn, with a small commercial base. The other thing I want to comment on that I thought was really interesting was you gave us the list of all of the types of properties in town. This one?
Yeah.
Where you see how much is commercial, how much is industrial, how much is personal property and residential by unit. So you see that there's, 7,000 or 8,000 of the 9,700 taxable entities in town, over 7,000 of them, almost 8,000 of them are residentials.
We have 147 commercial parcels.
Right. So 147. And then you get to see the breakdown of the tax for that. That was great. But even more telling than that was when you gave us our top 5 taxpayers.
And if you notice, 3 out of the 5 are utilities.
Right. So 3 out of the 5, and I had to call Steve today because I didn't understand this. I'm like, where's the house for Columbia Gas? And that's just all the pipes and everything that they
Yeah, all
own.
their
and
personal property.
Personal property. So 3 of the top 5 are personal property taxpayers, so.
Unfortunately, we cannot pick and choose who we would assess the split rate to. It has to be one commercial,
Right,
all
so
commercial.
CIP, I think is what you told
Commercial,
me,
industrial, personal.
and personal property all fall into
Oh,
the
it's all the
same.
same rate.
Good stuff.
It was. Rick?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, and not any comment, because I agree with your assessment, but we do spend so much time banging around the fact, we only have 5%, and we sort of conveniently overlook the fact that so do all the other towns. All the other towns that we do our comps to also have a very, very low commercial tax rate, commercial tax base. And although, for example, we've also spent a lot of time working with the Economic Development Committee to increase the amount of economic development we have, I'm really not sure it's going to make a whole heck of a lot of difference. It's still a good thing to pursue, and we can increase. But, you look at even moving these tax rates around are going to change things on the order of tens per dollars. We even bring in a couple stores here and there. Yes, it'll help, and every little bit that we help will help, but these numbers are so skewed in one direction, and they're certainly not going to change. But also importantly, it's not unique to Scituate. I think we need to get that message out more, because I know in my village market conversations with people, they're always saying, well, geez, you guys aren't doing a good job. Look at how little commercial tax base we have. It's like, well, look, this is our demographic, and everybody else's demographic is the same thing. So I think we need to make sure we don't spend too much time on something that might not yield a big dividend at the end.
I think Hingham's a good example.
Yeah.
Derby Street and the shipyard, and it's 14 or 13% commercial, and they've maintained a single tax rate.
Yeah.
Right.
You would think that they're getting to the point where they could maybe do that, but they haven't done so.
Yeah.
But that having been said,
There's a
Mr.
reason.
Murray, the new growth economic development does have an impact.
Absolutely.
You know, shifting some economic development within the commercial real estate base is not gonna have a very big effect, but new
Right.
growth economic development, I think, could have an impact, so.
And every little
I-
bit helps.
Yeah, and I think
Absolutely.
that that's obviously an area that should remain on the table and continue to be considered.
Oh, no, absolutely. But it's going to be something, we need to do something significant. It's not
Yeah.
something chipping away here and there. You
Yes.
know, like one more convenience store is not going to, you know, rewrite our economic model here. Yeah, that's just my point, you know.
Yeah, just one other thing I wanted to bring up, Steve, you know, in talking about the split, where you can actually, the split means you can have a residential rate at one rate and a commercial rate at another rate. He was going over the burden, you know, what you would do in our small town like this is you'd be giving the homeowner a small break on their taxes and really throwing a much bigger tax burden on, like you said, a small convenience store. I think you used Ronnie Schoen's or something, you know, and the numbers you threw out were really dramatic. I can't remember what they were, but I think the residential rate would go down like $10 and the commercial rate would go up $900 or some big number like that. So we would be, you know, we'd be forcing a huge burden on the commercial base that we have. And how do you think they'd get it back? You know, they would be, I think you said a loaf of bread would be $16 at Ronnie Schoen's. So you just, it's a,
Well, the larger commercial property owners usually have in their leases some kind of a tax escalation clause.
Right.
If we pass it on to them, they pass it on to the tenant.
but it isn't an apples to apples. It's not like you're gonna save $1 and the commercial property's gonna pay $1. It's a huge scale, so.
And I think to that point is that because we don't have the mall, we don't have outside people coming to shop where we can pass along that cost to the business owner who then, the real estate owner who passes it on to the lessee, who then passes it on to the consumer. If you think about our little industrial areas or our little, you know, the Bill Orenberger office complex, that's us. I mean, he's passing it on to the tenant's passing it on to the guy that works out at the gym.
It's
So
not Microsoft
that's
who's
all us.
selling it
Yeah.
overseas.
It's all us. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense at this point. Every year we consider it, but at this point, it doesn't make a lot of sense again.
I will say this is really helpful because I would have thought that some of these rates, they might have thought about splitting it, but it's telling.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
Plymouth might be the only one who probably should, but for the
Yeah.
reasons you stated, it makes sense. They're trying to augment it. And and to Rick Murray's point, I do agree that, you know, it's always, we need to increase the base. There's no doubt about it. So if that number goes up 1 or 2 or 10, 5%, that's huge for our town, because it will at least relieve to some degree the burden on the residential. But I don't foresee in any near future ever being a split rate. So thanks for this info. It's really
Yes, it
helpful.
was very helpful. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
all
Mr.
that
Blow.
backup. Could I have a motion?
Sure.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to classify all the property in the town of Situate at 1.
And a second.
I'll
Second.
that.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks again, guys. That was great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Todd.
Agenda item number 4 is, we're going to appoint a new licensing agent. As you guys recall, Mike Stewart was our licensing agent before he was promoted as chief. Typically, that agent will be here for hearings, and he could be here, just works with us on all aspects of all applications, and unfortunately, sometimes violations. Is Jerry up? Thought I saw him earlier.
Yes, he is.
Jerry, if you could come right up.
John, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Mike, thanks for coming. Chief Stewart. I just was explaining a little bit how Mike was our licensing agent, and you are going to be, and what that involves. And I'll let you take over, but you've taken a course or gotten some knowledge on what needs to be done, Jerry? Is that-
Correct. I took a 3-day course last week up at Babson College, run by a former Boxborough cop who retired, then went to work for the ABCC for 17 years. It was, I told the chief, it was a great training, did a lot of role-playing, a lot of paperwork for resources later on down the line. It was a great training.
Did you quiz him, Mike?
I didn't, but I trust that, it was Jim Staples, name might mean something.
Sounds
We used to, Jim used to be down here all the time when we would have hearings back in the 90s and so forth. But, so I'm assured it's good training and a great update and refresher for the department.
Great. Yeah, any comments, questions before we make a motion?
Just, and this probably goes more towards chief, not sergeant, but I know in the past we had, I don't want to say stings, but, you know, kind of, we continuing to try to just test our stores to make sure, and restaurants, that they're not serving underage. Good.
Yes,
Finally,
we were just approved a grant,
good.
so, alcohol grant, so that will be one of the situations that we establish.
Good, good. Any others? If not, accept a motion.
Move the Board of Selectmen appoint Sergeant Gerald O'Brien, Scituate Police Department, as the town's licensing agent.
Can I have a motion and a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, thank you.
See ya. Agenda item number 5 is a vote for a new septic disposal license. Yep. If you don't mind stepping forward, I happen to know Andrew Spath, and, but if you could just say your name and address for the record.
I'm Andrew Spath. I'm actually here on behalf of Mike Walsh, who's my partner in a new septic hauling company. We used to have the license here in town as R.W. Rosano. We've actually taken on a new partner and renamed the company. So we'd like to continue to utilize Scituate's facility to dump in. And I guess that's really it. Again, we've
And
kind of
after-
had the license for the past 5 or 6 years now.
So
We'd just
af-
like to transfer.
After the New Year's, I was talking to Ross earlier that he wouldn't renew under that name, it would just renew under this name. These- Yes, this new name. These gentlemen are not new at this business, that's for sure.
And you have the requisite insurance?
I do, actually.
I know we don't have it, but I'm just wondering, it's up to date. That's the
Yes.
most important thing with us.
Anybody else?
So this would just change the name, and then pretty soon he'd have to renew again.
Actually, this is a new license, I guess. They had to get a new one. He couldn't just change the name, so for a month and a half,
He'll be back again.
and then
Yeah.
they will not.
So you gotta renew again real soon,
Correct.
Under this name.
under this new name.
Yes, and
Yeah, I dig
R.W.
it.
Rosano will not.
I'm good.
Great, okay.
Move the Board of Selectmen to vote to grant a septic disposal license to Septic Pro Inc., 34 Crocker Lane in Cohasset, Mass. 02025.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Kim, do you need that insurance thing? Yes. Could you just leave it?
Agenda item number 6 is discussion and a vote for a mossing shed, a donation of the shed from, sounds like Young's Boatyard to the Historical Society.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I know the vote. I know it well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good.
Thanks for meeting with us tonight. I have tonight with me Pam Martell, who is our projects coordinator. She is the one that's been responsible for all the exhibit planning at the Maritime Museum, the GAR Hall, Little Red Schoolhouse, and pretty much every other building that we have been dealing with over the last 15 years or so. We're here tonight to ask the town, through the Board of Selectmen, to donate the Irish moss shed that's at the Scituate Marine Park. And Pam just passed out the little packet. It shows the moss shed. The moss shed is the smaller of the two buildings. When the town bought the boatyard, there were two buildings, historical buildings, that went with the sale. One was the moss shed, the other was the Humane Boathouse. Both have been restored with CPC funds. The moss shed is not getting really any use by the public. It's just not something that the public is taking advantage of. And what we're proposing to do is to, once the town agrees to give it to the society, we would move it to the Irish, Maritime and Irish Mossing Museum. And the second page in shows the plan of where that would go. It would be attached actually to the Irish Mossing Room at the Maritime Museum. It would be moved to the museum with a low sling flatbed truck, lifted onto the truck at the boatyard and lifted off at the Maritime Museum with the crane and placed. I'm sure one of the questions you'll have is, what is the use of the building right now? And the only use that it's getting is in the wintertime. It is being used for some storage of picnic tables by the Recreation Commission. I did ask Jennifer Vitale if she had any issue of us moving it, taking it out of the boatyard. She said no, that they do use it for that kind of storage, but almost all of their equipment, including the sailboats, is stored in the Humane Boathouse, which is right next door. It's a really cool building. It's the only moss shed left in town. It's probably the only moss shed left in the United States. We don't want to see it just sitting there. So that's what the proposal is. We did apply to the CPC committee for monies to do all this, and that application had to be in on November 1, so we've already applied to them. But obviously, we have to get your approval before we go ahead with this at all.
Okay, Rick?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this building, and in principle, I've got no problem with this at all. I do, however, I'm not able to move forward on this on my part right now, just as a matter of process. I think because it's a town-owned piece of property that is historical, absolutely, that we should get some comment from our historical commission with their evaluation of whether this is a prudent move. I can't imagine they would say no, but I just think as a matter of process, it's a historical building, we got a historical commission, and I'd like to see some comment from them on it. The only other thing I had a question was, I don't think this is the case, but just reassure me if you could, Dave. I know we mentioned both of those structures quite a lot when we were acquiring the boatyard and getting state support to redo the whole boatyard area. And there's nothing in any of the monies we receive from the state that's contingent upon maintaining both of those structures there.
I don't recall any.
I don't think there are.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I remember at the time, Joe Norton asked me if we wanted to take both of those buildings out of
Yeah.
there.
No, I remember that.
Because he was kind of leaning in that direction. I said, well,
Yeah.
let's leave them where they are for now.
Yeah.
If you recall, the moss shed was in terrible condition. Two
Oh, you
people
guys
could have
done
pushed
great.
it over.
Yeah.
It has been restored.
Yeah.
Maybe the other thing I'd just like to mention very quickly, there's a couple of benefits to the town of having it out of there.
Oh.
One being that it's taking up space.
Yep.
It's not getting any use, and if it continues where it is there's gonna have to be some monies at some point in time expended to maintain it.
I completely agree. I support it.
Yeah.
I just
But,
want to make clear.
To answer your question, I don't recall
Yeah.
any conditions at all.
No, personally, I support it, it's just I feel that I just like some comment from the commission, beforehand.
No,
But
that's
that's just me. you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
the way I'd say, that's an interesting concept. I hadn't thought about that with the commission. I just look at it, I'm like, I've been there, and you're right, it's kind of underused with the respect that people don't have an opportunity to see it. To me, it kind of makes sense, providing you get the funding from CPC, to put it next to the Mossing Museum, because it goes hand in hand with it. Makes perfect sense. People will then appreciate what a mossing shed is when they go through the exhibits and the boats. It actually is perfect for it. So I have no problems with it. I think the possibility of it getting further damage with storm overwash and everything else makes sense, and so I like the idea.
Tony? Yeah, I like the idea too. The two things that popped in my mind were, the first one is, we did the work, I know we did some work on the foundation of it. Is moving it gonna damage it? Do you think it's easily moved? Or do you think
Yeah,
the structure's in?
I talked to the contractor that did the restoration work on it, and when he worked on it, the idea was at that time to actually move it further back from the street. If you can see in the picture there, it's quite close to the street.
Right.
So the idea was it was gonna be moved anyway. So I don't anticipate any problem structurally of doing that.
Good. I mean, I wouldn't want to move it to jeopardize
Right.
the integrity of it. And the other question, in the motion, and maybe this is the way we do it for all of them, it's to donate it. And is that the way we've done all the other properties? We actually donated to the historical,
The last
Society,
building
or do
that- Yeah, the last building that the society took over from the town was the GAR Hall. I think we ended up giving the town $1. So we would be willing to give the town $1.
well, I guess it's still the town's property, but it's under the care and custody of,
Well, the
Society, it's
GAR Hall actually was, just to give you a quick rundown on it, the town owned the GAR Hall. It was considering, because it was in such terrible condition, the proposal was to tear it down and sell it off as a house lot. The society stepped in at that time and basically did what we're doing here. If I remember correctly, there was a transaction, $1, and we actually bought the building. I don't think we need to do that really in this case, because it's not sitting, it's gonna be on our land rather than, I don't see that as quite.
I don't care about the money, I'm just wondering, is that the piece of property is still owned by the town, is that correct?
Right, the property that the building is sitting on.
No,
is
I'm sorry, the structure, I guess it would be.
Right, yeah, the structure is owned by the town.
And it still would be after the donation, or it
No,
wouldn't?
no.
Okay, so it's then your responsibility to maintain it?
Oh, absolutely.
And all that,
CPC
and,
funding, yeah.
Yeah,
and is that the way you want it, I guess is?
yeah. No, it'd
Okay,
be- it'd
so,
be-
but the lighthouse, the Cudworth, all those all those properties are owned by the town and under the custody of the society?
The lighthouse.
Not the lighthouse,
Yeah,
yeah,
Lighthouse.
the lighthouse, yeah, yeah.
Lighthouse,
Class of
Cudworth,
Yeah, the lighthouse.
Rebecca and
You're
Abigail
right.
Gates.
The lighthouse is somewhat unique because it is owned by the town, but by a vote of town meeting. Town meeting gave the society custody and administration of the property. This would be simply a donation of the building.
Right, so I guess my question is, does the town still want to have ownership of this historical thing, or, I don't know.
It's a shed, 16 by 20-foot
Right.
shed. I don't have really, they're gonna take care of it.
No, I know, I'm just asking.
Right. No, I know
the
what you're saying.
question.
I know what you're
And I
saying.
think if the society were to, God forbid, go defunct, then I presume that everything would revert back to the town, these buildings, I assume.
I would think.
Whenever you accept CPC money, if something happened in the far future, I suppose the town could take it back to the boatyard.
No, I'm just saying, if something were to
Property
happen, who would own it? In other words, no private entity could come in and take over these things. In other words, if it's, that's all I'm saying, David. In other words, would it revert back to the public interest and the public
think-
ownership?
I think if they go, not that they would, but it's an interesting question, if they do go belly up at some point, long down the future, they get to do with their property whatever they want. I would hope that would be the case from your perspective.
Yeah, what we're essentially asking is either sell it to us for $1 or give it to us.
Well, we can't sell it to you, and I think we have to check with town council if we can donate it outright, because it is public-owned land with a publicly owned building. I'm assuming that it's probably not an issue to donate it right to the Historical Society, but it's something that needs to be checked. Has the Historical Commission certified that it's a historical building? Have you asked them yet?
No. However, two of our members are on the Historical Commission. I can't anticipate, I mean, they know we're coming here tonight.
No, I'm sure it's not an
Yeah,
issue
yeah.
at all. It's just I know that's required for CPC to give the money for historic, is
Right,
a vote of the Historical Commission.
This is kind of the first step in the whole process. We're gonna have to go to the planning board, because it's probably gonna be, they probably wanna make sure, they may even require a revision to the site plan.
Well,
Yeah,
for
I mean-
our motion, we could just add,
Contingents.
contingent on town councils.
Yeah, that
Well,
makes
what,
sense.
I mean, do we have to decide?
Why decide this now?
Yeah, we don't have,
I mean, I guess I'd love the idea of the piece of, the structure going to that piece of property and being encompassed in the whole museum. I think that's perfect. I guess my question is, as Rick was kind of going to, does the town still want to maintain ownership of the property in case something happened at some point in time?
Or is there some value to the town in terms of
No?
future?
Just saying no.
But is there,
Please take it.
but the other thing I was more thinking of is there some value to the town to be able to list it as some historical property that we still own, even if it's in their care and custody, just for helping us get future grants on other historical things or something. I just like, and my personal feeling, like I said, is I support this, but I'd like a letter from the commission supporting it. And Dave, I understand when you say this is sort of the start of the process. I kind of like us to be more near the end of the process, like we were with the planning board when they were talking about zoning issue a little while ago. And we said, well, can you go to the planning board before you come to us? Just, the planning board is the experts. They might raise things that we're not even thinking of.
But this is kind of the cart before the horse thing, because if we're not gonna, if it's not donated, what are they going through all the other steps for? So it's a tough
They can
one.
get a sense from us whether we're,
Right.
whether we like it or not
I think they
tonight.
already do,
Yeah.
so.
And
Yeah,
the
right,
one thing,
so-
the one thing you gotta realize is this: assume for the sake of argument, the town says, "Look, we're willing to have you move it, okay? But we are going to reserve an ownership interest in it because it's ours, kind of like on donation and perpetuity for whatever." Then presumably we're going to be the ones who are going to take care of it. So
Yeah,
there's a benefit there if it turns out that way. We go that route.
I think the benefit would be if the society moves it to the Maritime Museum and is maintaining it, it's one less building that the town has to worry about.
I realize that.
and the
But I'm
people
saying
would
in
see
the event that it goes, the town still wants to reserve its right for ownership, but place it there with you, so it complements the museum, then the town would be obligated to continue to maintain it.
But I don't think we
We'll
want to
figure
do
that logistic
All
out.
right, so am I here, so you don't have a problem if we held off on voting this tonight?
Oh, no, no, I don't have a
I think
problem
you
with
have
that
an
at all.
idea.
I just didn't want to go well into the process and then come in
Absolutely.
here and announce, oh, by the way, we need your.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
Totally,
go to the other
totally on board.
boards, in the meantime, maybe we can find out through Jim Toomey if we can do this.
Or how to do it.
Town meeting vote.
Or how to do it.
Right.
Yeah, so if you get a letter from from the commission with your members on there, from my perspective, and then, but I think the sense of the board is we're all in favor of this, and so, keep going, and then when it's all wrapped up, we can,
Yeah, and I guess my suggestion would be to town council would be, can we sell the structure to the historical center? And that's the cleanest,
Right.
easiest way.
How do we do it?
It's like the same that they did with
Yeah.
GAR.
It will be attached, the way you're going to be able to access the shed through a little L from the Irish mossing exhibit, so it will actually, the way we're conceiving it now, be attached to the existing structure.
one of the reasons I support it is because it makes it much more accessible to people. No one really knows it's there now, no one goes into it. If it's down with you folks, people are gonna enjoy it and see it and learn from it, and that's the whole point.
We had it open for the boat show, and that's been about the only time that the public
Yeah.
has had access.
It's really interesting inside because there are all of the names, a lot of the names of the mossers from
Yeah.
the 50s and 40s and
Really wild.
written right on the side of the building, so it's pretty.
No, I never did
Yeah.
Moss, no, I never did Moss. But I'm sure there's some McEachrons and Pilatas and so
There
forth.
were.
There
Yes, right. All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Thanks so much.
Next agenda item is a discussion and a presentation on Hunter's Pond and the Bound Brook project.
Hi.
Hi, Al.
Gentlemen, good evening. Oh, you want to sit right there? Oh, okay, good.
Wish I knew that button was there.
Good evening.
Al, we just have, you'll be able to go along at a pretty good pace just because we have a public meeting.
At what time?
10 minutes of 8.
Okay. All right. This is a 10-minute presentation and some discussion concerning a topic in North Scituate about a dam on Bound Brook that is potentially, will eventually fail. With me tonight is Nick Wildman from the State Game and Fisheries, correct? Is that what we call that? Close. Close. And Eric Hutchins from NOAA. Also with me tonight is Paul Shea, who is, has been conservation agent here on an interim basis, also is conservation agent in Cohasset as a contractor, and is a member of a team along with Patrick Gallivan, our conservation agent, who are members of the team. And we have several other members who are not able to be with us here tonight. What we want to do is bring you up to date on this project. I think I've spoken with you individually about it on occasion. You've asked questions about it. The dam on Bound Brook across Mordecai Lincoln Road in North Scituate is right at the Cohasset and Scituate boundary. Mordecai Lincoln Road runs across the top of the earthen berm of the dam. The town does not own the what we look at as the dam, that concrete structure, but we do own the road that runs across the berm, and we're responsible for utilities that are in that road, and we also own a culvert that goes from the pond underneath the road, underneath the barn, and is used as a spillway that was installed in the 1960s. So we're responsible for that as well. The town doesn't own the dam, but the Office of Dam Safety has asked the owner to do a dam safety study and make any necessary repairs. And the owner doesn't feel like they have the resources for that. They're not willing to, or they're not able to, not anxious to go make repairs to the dam. Why are we interested in this? Because of our road, and because of the water pipe that lays under the water of the pond, and because of other utilities that are in that area, and because of this culvert that we have to repair. So the Department of Public Works stepped in about a year and a half ago and said, we need to do something about this, because frankly, we can't pave the road, we can't make repairs unless we figure out what we're gonna do with this whole dam. We obtained through help from Coastal Zone Management and from NOAA and from Nick here and several others, a grant to do a study. The study was to look at what are the options for this dam, for removal, for repair, for any other forms of restoration. With that money, we hired a consultant firm, Princeton Hydro, who has since January spent the time doing all sorts of hydrological studies, hydraulic studies, and studies that I didn't even know you could study. But nonetheless, I've come back with what we're going to see tonight, which is a presentation on the alternatives and what's actually happening down there. We think we have a pond. We actually don't have a pond. We have something that's going to become a river over time no matter what, and it will restore itself to maybe a less desirable state than we found it in the 1600s when it was originally dammed. And the only other thing I wanted to say before we get started is that we've had 2 abutters meetings. We invited all of the abutting property owners around that dam, basically on Mordecai Lincoln and Country Way, to join us in January of this year, where we talked about what the situation was, why the town was interested, why the town doesn't have financial responsibility for this, but we will step in and try to come to a solution. Then we had a follow-up abutters meeting in October, where again we invited everyone in and took them through a longer version of this presentation and had a good question and answer period. And the sense is that the abutters come to the same conclusions we do based on the comments at the meeting, as well as a couple of conversations we've had throughout the January to October timeframe. So with those teasers, let me turn it over to Nick.
Nick Wildman from the Department of Fish and Game, and Al has certainly hit all the high points. I've created this presentation to summarize the results of basically the work that we've done with the town here. Again, these are the partners that have been involved, as Al mentioned. Hunter's Pond, not just the situation with the ownership and the multiple interests, but also the development of this site over time is very common. It's a very old dam, and so both from a historical perspective of ownership and rights and uses for this site, as well as the ecological condition, have developed very similar to almost all the projects that NOAA Fisheries, represented by Eric here, and my division have worked on over the last few years. Essentially, what we see at Hunter's Pond today, as Al said, is much different than when it was first built and when it was operated, because dams do a great job of stopping that sediment flow from going out to nourish the marsh as is supposed to happen, and holds it back into the impoundment there, eventually supporting vegetation. And so basically, essentially what you have is now, especially during the summer months, almost fully vegetated island in the middle, and you have the associated ecological stresses that come from that. The bottom right-hand picture shows you very clearly what a public infrastructure threat this is under high flow conditions. Basically, what we found out is that anything over what's referred to as the 100-year storm is going to overtop the road, which makes it not safe for passage and further deteriorates the dam structure. This year, in addition to the work that was funded through the Gulf of Maine Council grant that Eric and I were party to, GZA engineers did an assessment of the bridge in compliance or under the direction of the Office of Dam Safety Regulations. Long story short, the opinion of cost is somewhere between $450,000 to $750,000 to bring this up to modern day standards. At the very least, we have numerous structural problems with the dam and things like the trees growing in the earthen embankment, which in the case of a large nor'easter or hurricane, seriously undermine an earthen structure like this. As Al mentioned, we worked with Princeton Hydro on the feasibility study that was scoped in development with all the project partners, including the town. It included all the various items that you see here, which you might expect, but in addition, it included historical documentation and review, and we did have the public meetings that Al mentioned. There's a lot of words on this slide, but just to summarize, one of the most costly and environmentally concerning aspects of a dam removal is often the sediment that is accumulated behind the dam, and it's in our industrial heritage is often carries a lot of contaminants with it. We're very glad to see, at least on preliminary sampling, that sediment is relatively clean compared to what we've seen across the state. The crux of the issue here is going to be flow management and how much of, so the spillway that we showed there upstream of what you cross over at the bridge is one of the key aspects, but there is also the outlet by the Mordecai Lincoln barn, which I'll show in the next slide. The goals of this project, beyond the ecological goals of reestablishing these processes, fish passage for important species and sediment migration, one of the other goals would be to get this off of Dam Safety Office's radar, so that regardless of who owns it, regardless of who's in charge of taking care of it, with respect to that regulatory liability and the public safety concerns, we would establish a hydraulic condition here that this was no longer a dam. So that's one of the key things. Findings of this is that flow must be maintained through both those spillway or bridge outlet and the Mordecai Lincoln side culvert. It's not going to bring, also this dam removal, based on the initial modeling, will not bring new tidal flow into this area. So what I'm describing is better depicted here. Spillway removal and something to stabilize the very dangerous situations with the culvert over on the Mordecai Lincoln side would be part of that. Essentially what this would do would be to return this to a riverine state, wouldn't pond up, and the accumulated sediment in the middle most likely would simply vegetate in place. That would most likely be augmented with seedings and planting of native species, probably some monitoring and dealing with invasive species over time. And so the situation there would not visually look too much different than what's there, probably what folks saw over the last few months under low flow periods, with that not impounded. Something to add on that?
You missed the bottom line there.
Oh, yeah, that's why it's at the bottom. So Princeton Hydro was estimating about $263,000 to make this happen. That's quite a bit less. As you recall, about $450 was the bottom line, and for repair of this. That includes many things and we vetted that amongst the project team. I'll talk more about that in a bit. Just as quickly to step through some slides of a project that was very similar we undertook in Rowley. This is called Ox Pasture Brook. It's similar because it's at the head of tide. It's dissimilar because there are no houses on the impoundments and no bridge over the top. But what we expect to happen here is very similar. Here's an aerial view of Ox Pasture Brook. The dam is at the top. River flow would be from the bottom to the top of the stream into the tidal salt marsh there. And here's what it looks like today. So prior to the dam removal, you had a stream going through. We had drawn down the impoundment. I'm showing these because while the slide you see here may not be very visually appealing here, the quote-unquote mudflat that many people fear in times of dam removal, quickly vegetated in. See, from March to June, we had almost 100% vegetation coverage. By September, it looked like this, and that was without any auxiliary seeding or planting, which we almost certainly would do here. So you see it restored to a nice meadow condition. And back to the bottom line points, as Al rightly brought up, we're at about $263,000 was the estimate from Princeton Hydro. Based on the input from Eric's experience, my experience, and others on the project team, and given the fact that we've just completed the feasibility study, we see some likely junctures where that cost will increase or change. But ultimately, we still feel fairly confident at this stage that we'll still come in at or under the low end of the dam repair estimate. The other benefit, obviously, from dam removal, is that by eliminating the dam, you have no future O&M for the town or the owner and residents to deal with into the future. Clearly, very exceptional benefit to river herring and other things, which are the forage species for the recreational and commercial fishery folks in Scituate and Cohasset. A very exceptional opportunity here at this site as compared to some of our other project sites where doing this work would actually help to safeguard and ensure the historical value that the Mordecai Lincoln property provides to the town, and could very easily dovetail with some of the bike path and other recreational opportunities that that folks are exploring here. I've circled the National Fish and Wildlife Service Foundation and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service here to bring to your attention a really pressing need as far as next steps go. Due at the end of January is what is right now the only and one of the few last remaining large federal funding sources for dam removal that we know of. Certainly these things change as things on Capitol Hill change, but there is currently, through the joining of these two groups, an opportunity using millions of dollars of money appropriated from Hurricane Sandy damage to use natural means to increase communities' resilience to large storms and climate change effects, of which dam removal is one of the primary avenues for that. And that is part of the, besides familiarizing the select board with the findings of our study, that's probably the most pressing next step as we look to get the community engaged in that. The main beneficial aspect is this is a large pot of money, and it would cover up to 75% of the costs going forward. That's in excess of the usual one-to-one match that's required from most federal funding sources. Here's a general outline of how things may go forward. And I moved kind of fast to try to meet the time limit, but I'm happy to take any questions that you might have, or go back or provide other information.
Questions, comments before I go, and I'll hold mine last. You're all set, Rick?
So let me ask you this. In other words, the commitment from the town right now, what are we looking at from the monetarily? We're going to try to apply for, if we go forward with this, apply for grants through the National Federal Wildlife.
We would assist the property owner, the dam owner.
Yep.
Of a record, and we've had, I've had extensive conversations with him, and he attended our meetings as well, and is totally aligned with this. In concert with him, we would apply for these federal grants to move forward, okay? He'd be applying, we'd be supporting him. There are some other aspects of this that are very interesting to CPA, the CPC people.
Yeah.
And so one of the partner members, Penny Scott Pipes, is who's on the Conservation Commission as well, is applying for some CPA funds. Perfect. To see that.
Good.
The DPW has some skin in this game too, because we've got the cost. If this goes forward, we save money in what we have to do to fix the culvert. A big cost of this is fixing that culvert underneath that goes from the pond underneath the barn onto private property. I'm not even sure we have, proper access today. But anyway, a series of funds to move this thing forward. The cost to even the cost of the town of removal is less than what we would bear as a cost of our portion of the repair. A lot of the repair means removing all the trees that are on that berm, and then putting down gravel on either side, or riprap on either side. It would be quite ugly when we're all done with this project, if it were to be a repair project. So from the beautification standpoint, as well as a cost standpoint, it's in our best interest to work with, support the owner who's got motivation right now to move forward and move forward with this grant
So I guess
application.
what I'm saying, Al, is right now, if we were the sole contributor to it, our exposure would probably be about 280, 290,000, presuming that the issues with the piping and the utilities weren't a major factor.
Yeah.
And it can only get better if we end up getting grants,
Exactly.
CPC funds from
Right,
there.
and our cost would be 25% of, I mean, the grant would do 75%, we have to come up with the other 25.
If we get the grant.
Yes,
But
that's
if not,
correct.
then we need.
And if we don't get the grant, I don't know
We
what
have to
we'll do.
commit to doing with
Right.
what we're doing, okay.
So,
I think just a couple of key points that I'll get out of your way, and that is that, clearly, as we've talked about, removal is less expensive for everyone, public and private, than repair, and then repair involves biannual re-inspections and repairs. An O&M plan, I know about those because we have 2 dams at the water department that we have to maintain, and it's an expensive proposition to do the engineering work every 2 years to file for why we want to keep it and what it looks like. Second key point is that the key abutters agree that removal of the dam is a prudent approach and inevitable. If nothing is done, the dam is going to be removed by nature at some point, and the pond, the beautiful pond of the 1940s has already gone away and is now, as we see it in the summer. The presumed
just
owner of
on
the
that-
dam wants help in getting the funds for removal. There's a new grant opportunity, and I think as we whip through this, one thing we're missing, I haven't mentioned as loudly enough, in that this has all the earmarks of a really important project for the New England or the Scituate fishing industry, because this removal of this one dam opens up an incredible habitat spawning area all the way up into Lily Pond in Cohasset, where they have an adequate fish passage. And it's pretty exciting from the standpoint of what it can do for our fishing industry.
So, did the abutters have any complaints at all? I mean, you mentioned mud flats, and we've had issues with smells and bugs and that sort of stuff. Did they have any concerns over that?
Yeah, all of those concerns.
Okay.
Yep. Those were all expressed and discussed with the abutters. So, the mud flats go away quickly. The pond becomes a river. There are fish in the river. There's some fish in the ponds, but there's really about 3 key abutters to this. There's one property owner who owns significant pieces of property around it, and he is reluctantly admitting that this is probably the right way to go.
But now, you have a fairly nice-sized pond there now. It's gonna be more like a little stream, right? I mean.
Yeah, I don't know how often you see it, but in the summer, it's not a nice-sized pond. No.
I thought kids skated in the winter there, that's all
And in the middle, it's about, what's the depth of the middle? 6 inches?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Pretty
mean, it's all
fetid
mudded
ponds.
in.
Right.
That one picture you saw with the gravel coming down is an example of what's happened, is that the gravel and fines come down, they drop in the middle, and basically form this big, one more.
Oh, you want to see the,
Yeah.
yep.
See how it is filled in there over time? So in the middle of this thing, all you have really is 2 streams coming down either side, and a big thick spot in the middle. You can't swim in it or get in it, or.
But number of bugs and everything's gonna go way down because you don't have standing water. You're gonna have running water and stuff like that.
Got moving water.
But isn't it completely covered in the winter, like all that growth in the middle? But
It
you're
looks
saying-
like a pond in the winter, yeah. There's the,
Yeah, that top right.
the top right is when there's no
But
growth.
that's only 6 inches of water.
But it's only 6 inches of water in the middle. There's about 4 or 5 feet on either side of that thing.
Where the stream goes around.
Yeah. And eventually, this will become what's called a perched stream. In other words, it is becoming a stream. It's filling in all the sediment. And you'll end up with a stream that just comes up and hits a dam and then falls over it.
On the others, oh, no,
Yeah.
on this side, yeah.
Okay?
Okay, I think you're just looking for our support. Do we need a motion? Yes, I guess we do.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote their continued support of the Hunters Pond Bound Brook project team as they pursue this grant and other funding opportunities.
Motion, and do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 It's a good thing, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Great stuff.
Appreciate it. I'm just gonna have to go out of order now. If I can, with the board's permission, I'm gonna jump to agenda.
This is not the cause of brown water.
Agenda item number 10. Now, we have a public hearing.
I'm gonna recuse myself.
Okay.
About 8?
Before no, I'm
Oh,
gonna jump
public
to
hearing,
10.
sure. Yep,
If that's
gotcha.
right.
No problem.
Nice job.
The proponents for the liquor license hearing, liquor license hearing transfer, if they want to come forward? Before we start, before I have Marty read the newspaper advertisement and start, I just, looking it over earlier today, I don't think I have a conflict. One of the owners, principals of the inn is my accountant. So I don't think I have a problem with it, but I just want to put it out there. And if someone in the audience has a problem with it, I didn't think so. Just want to mention it. If I could start by having Marty read the legal advertisement and go in.
The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 12th, 2013, in the Selectmen's Chambers, Town Hall, 600 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Scituate, Mass. At 8:00 p.m. to consider the application for the transfer of the common victuals license, victuals, all kinds of alcoholic beverage license held by the Inn at Scituate Harbor Incorporated, 7 Beaver Dam Road, Scituate, Massachusetts, to Sea Smoke LLC, 130 Vernon Road, Scituate, Massachusetts, for the premises located at 7 Beaver Dam Road on the bottom floor of the Inn at Scituate Harbor, consisting of a lounge area with 55 seats and 15 additional seats at the bar. An outdoor patio has 25 seats. There are 2 entrances, exits, one to the lobby of the inn and the other to the patio sidewalk, which is gated. There are a total of 7 entrances, exits to the building. Board of Selectmen, Town of Scituate.
Thank you, Marty. Before I ask you people to introduce yourselves and names and addresses, I just would bring everyone up to speed. What we have here is a current liquor license holder asking for another one at a different location, and that person that had held their liquor license is giving it up. Having said that, I'll turn it over to you. If you just identify yourselves, who you are. I know Robin King, you're the owner.
Chairman, Phil Selectman, who are you? Robin King, 130 Vernon Road.
Sit down, make yourself comfortable. You don't have to stand.
Absolutely.
Hello, Robin.
How's it going?
Good, very good, thank you.
Obviously, the reason we're here right now is for a smooth transfer of the liquor license. We're all familiar with what's there now, which my wife and I go to when we can, when we get out of work, and love it. And sort of the goal here is to, hopefully, certain local everyone's familiar with Oro, and what we're proposing to do is exactly what we've done at Oro, in the sense where we're providing great food, great service, great atmosphere, as we've done before, which is already there, and we're just trying to sort of add our touch, if you will, to it.
Okay. Rick, I'll start with you, I guess.
Yeah, just so, all right, so you want to transfer the license from you guys to you. You're in the process of buying the rights, to buying the restaurant, or buying the rights to serve food there? How does that work? Because the structure is owned by the inn, right?
Well, sir,
I don't know how this works.
What we're doing is, the way we structured it, to be the cleanest way to structure it is essentially it's a lease. And what we're doing
okay.
is we're leasing what is now the dog watch area.
Yeah.
From the inn, just as we've leased,
Yeah. Okay.
what was the Flounder, which
Cool.
is now Oro.
Yeah. No, I think this is a great idea. I mean, Dog Watch has been doing very, very well. Great place. But Robin, you've done a really good job at Oro, and, we haven't gotten any complaints at all about any behavior issues with the license that you're having at Oro. And, fine upstanding citizen, contribute to the town and all that stuff, and so I got no problem with this at all.
Great. Anyone else?
Does the license stay with the location?
He's the manager, so.
Right, so it's
I'm
just,
not-
the license is still gonna be affiliated with that property.
That address, that's correct.
And you're just leasing that as part of your lease of the running of that operation.
Yes, sir.
But it's not a lease on the license, though, I believe, is it? The license actually
License-
transfers over 100%.
License goes to Robin.
Right. As
So
the manager.
the full responsibility would be on Robin,
Correct.
not on the owners of the inn.
Right. But if at
It's
some
no
point.
different than like Robin just explained it where he is now. If he doesn't own the building now, it's really.
Right, but
no
if
different.
if you have a 3-year lease and the lease expires, then Robin doesn't have the lease anymore. The lease stays with the dog watch, is that correct?
The license then would have to
No.
go somewhere else.
So, as I understand it, and Kim's the expert on this, if in 3 years they decide to part company, they would have to turn that license back in, and
They would
then
have to
the
reapply.
people at the inn would have to reapply for that, if I'm not mistaken.
Or they could do the
Okay,
exact
back,
transfer.
Right, yeah,
I mean,
okay. Right,
essentially, yes, what we would do is if, in point, that did happen, at that time, what we would say is, you know, this is the license, it was yours before, it's yours now, we're vacating the premises and we're giving it right back to them. So once again,
That would have to
it would be
come
a very
through us.
clean transition.
Right.
That's sort of the way that we structured it going into it, and not an issue on our mind anyway,
And then
but,
to answer, and then take it a step further, Robin couldn't take that same license and go down the street with it and reopen, without coming through this board and ABCC.
Because the license stays with the
That
property.
That
location.
physical
Property
location.
and the
License stays
person.
with both the individual and the
And the
address.
property, correct.
Two
You
components to
could
a
come back after
license.
3 years and say, we want to transfer it back to the dog wash, and then we would have to go through that approval process.
Correct.
Or if he were to hire a manager, in a year from now.
But we get those change of managers.
That's correct.
That's different than.
Right, right.
Right, I think it's great. I think the dog watch is a great place now, and I think your food's great, and I think it's a good combination, so.
Thank you.
Robin, what do you figure on days that you'll be open? Is it going to be like a 7-day operation, do you think? or-
Out of the gate, we're gonna be open 5 days a week.
Okay.
The schedule that we've set forth right now would be Wednesday through Sunday. I believe the license that's currently in place is a 12 to 12. We're
Yes.
not
Correct.
gonna
Yeah.
change anything at
Yeah.
all there.
Okay.
Right now, the bar would open at 4 o'clock and go until until we see fit to close. Perhaps, it was, when we did Oro, I'm gonna structure it very similarly in the aspect that, we wanna open up doing dinner, get that perfect, Certainly, there's ideas of lunch and so on down the line, but I think for right now, let's focus on one thing, get it going smooth and for open dinner.
So the people that stay in the inn won't have a place to go for eat or drink until you open at 4 o'clock, is that the inn? Or is it open to the inn?
Well,
The inn does a continental breakfast in the morning for all of its overnight guests. That's pretty much the extent of our food service once we turn over.
Right, so it's the same for the inn stayers as well
As it
as
is
the
now.
general public?
Yeah.
Motion?
Yes, I'll just make a quick comment, and much like the others have said, you guys are doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Good luck. Sure.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to grant the transfer of the common victuals, all kinds of alcoholic beverages license held by the Inn at Scituate Harbor, Inc., 7 Beaver Dam Road, Scituate, Massachusetts, to Sea Smoke LLC, 130 Vernon Road, Scituate, Massachusetts, for the premises located at 7 Beaver Dam Road on the bottom floor of the Inn at Scituate Harbor, consisting of a lounge area with 55 seats and 15 additional seats at the bar. An outdoor patio has 25 seats. There are 2 entrances and exits, one to the lobby of the inn and the other to the patio sidewalk, which is gated. There are a total of 7 entrances and exits to the building. The hours will be 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. Monday through Saturday, and Sundays 12 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, John's
Kim?
abstaining.
Could we just have clarification on the days of the week? Because
Wednesday and Thursday.
if you're not gonna be open 7 days a week, then specifically, we do need to know that. It has to list on your license the hours that you're open and the days of the week. The ABCC actually does check on that you're available to the public and selling, so.
Does
that
the
is-
license have to match the hours of openness?
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
It
so,
does. So if you
So is it okay to go ahead and say that we'll be 7 days to leave it open?
I think
That's
what
what-
Kim's
I mean-
saying is they could come in on a Monday when say you're open, but you're not open. Is that what you're suggesting?
Oddly enough, that is a problem. It is
So-
truly a problem.
Boy, you'd think they'd have better things to do,
Right,
but that's
so in the
not my...
motion, the way Rick read it, I was talking to Tony, Rick read it the way it exists now. He
Correct.
read
Yeah.
it from noon time.
Noon to noon.
12 a.m.,
Yeah.
6 days, and then Sunday from 12 noon.
Same thing.
Same thing.
But you could always come back, if you wanted to do 5, you could then come back.
Or we could amend it right now.
What
No, I
what
mean,
I-
come
what I'd
back
like to
and
do
say,
is
I
certainly,
extended to 7.
if that's
We can't though, can we?
the proper way to go about it, I certainly wouldn't want to limit ourselves.
the
Like I
ABCs.
said,
It's
if we were to
ABC.
have perhaps a
Like they're doing
function
now,
on a
right?
Monday or
Maybe change it now.
a reception or anything like that, I would hate that, for that to get in the way.
Right.
So what I would like to do, if it's okay with everyone involved, is apply for
But they're full
the
now.
maximum.
7
that we
days.
have, the 7 days a week.
Okay, so, all right.
And then, but
that's the
just
way
so
it's-
you're
that's the-
aware, as
Right.
as Ms. Donovan's pointing out, just so you're aware, if we approve it for these times, ABCC may come down and check.
Okay.
And Kim, are you so?
That's the message we're getting.
It's closed, right,
I
right.
know that sounds odd, but
Right.
it does happen.
Yeah.
They do check to make sure that you're open to the public, that the hours and the days that are listed on your license.
On the liquor license,
On the liquor license.
match the hours of operation and that you are adhering to them. So I think as long as we've informed them of that as their responsibility,
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, is that up
I
to
would
us, Tim,
certainly- I
to
would-
be able to
I would-
amend that, or is it up to the?
I think
The issue of the
the
license.
proponent would like to leave it the way it's written in the motion, but Kim's just caught, making him aware of the fact that if 1 o'clock in the afternoon, if someone from the ABCC comes down and then not open, might be an issue.
What I wouldn't
Get you in
wanna-
1 second, Linda.
What I wouldn't want to run into is a situation on the flip side where the ABCC comes down and we're
You're
open on a
serving
day
when you
when we're
shouldn't.
not, yeah, that's the,
Right,
Right.
oh, I
you know,
agree.
so I'd
Yeah.
rather leave it open, so if they come in and we have a function, a wedding reception or so be it, it's legitimate.
so the motion stands on those hours.
And I think I have a motion and a second,
Second, and we all
and, yeah,
voted.
and a
We already
vote,
voted.
actually.
Yep, we voted.
Yeah, I think we all voted, and John is abstaining, obviously.
Mr. Chairman, could I also know the name and address of the gentleman that's to Mr. King's right?
Sure.
It's Bruce Lever, 52 Scituate Avenue, and I'm one of the principals.
Okay, thank you.
And what's the date all this is gonna take place?
Well, at this point, I
That's
believe the
effective.
transfer goes to the state for approval, the ABCC, which I think we're sort of at the mercy of the state on that one,
But you're ready to,
Timeline.
but you're ready to go?
I can't wait.
All right, okay. Good.
So this winter,
Oh, yes, absolutely, the sooner the better.
Right, good.
Thanks,
Like we
guys.
said, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Take care.
If I can jump back to agenda number 8, if the board doesn't mind. While I,
What was 8? 8
We
was,
didn't
we didn't do 8 either, did we?
Bill Sheehan.
Yeah, Bill Sham. We can't.
As an update on our website from Bill Sheehan. Bill, we went as quick as we could.
Oh, that's fine, thanks.
Tricia over there working away on something pretty fancy looking.
playing Candy Crush.
Okay. Thanks for the time. I just wanted to go through some of the highlights of our new website, new web presence, so that you're aware. First is, we have a new domain, meaning a new address. We used to be www.situate, town.situate.ma.us. We're now www.situatema.gov. The .gov domain is regulated by the government, and so it's always a trusted domain. It's quite the process to get the .gov, let me say. Several of you have signed for it. As a side note to that, we're also in the process of migrating all our email addresses to the same domain. Town.situate.ma.us now forwards to situatema.gov, so anyone that goes to the old site will be redirected automatically to the new site. There's a less than subtle reminder to update your records with the new URL there right in the middle in red. And we're able to post updates like that, storm advisories, things of that nature, whenever we see fit. Obviously, it's a new design, new interface. I think it's a lot easier to navigate. You can go to departmental sites. We have employment sections now, how do I's, an emergency preparedness link that goes to an outside site for getting prepared for storms, things like that nature. Some of the cool new stuff is this, off the left-hand side, you can see a Citizen Action Center right here. And we've kind of done the buttons like apps for tablet-type computers. So the first one I want to go through is when you subscribe to the news here, we took our existing list of people that had subscribed to town news, which is essentially you subscribe to one list and you get any news, whether it's about dog licenses or groundwater. Going forward, now if I click on this link, I'll be taken to this page and how to just subscribe, and you can unsubscribe as well. Going forward, we'll be able to actually have more granular lists to subscribe to. Currently, we're just kind of in the beginning phases, and we just want to have the one list for now. So I will scroll back up to the top. And the Citizen Action Center is up here as well, so it's kind of persistent throughout the navigation, so I'll just go there instead of hitting the back button. FAQs, a document library, contact us. It's kind of nice here, a contact form where citizens can select a department and fill out a form, and that form is relayed to the head of that department for review and comment. And we can keep record of all of those interactions. Back to the Citizen Action Center. Now the online services section is actually pretty cool. We have new icons for pay bill online, for the rec programs. We have a GIS viewer coming very soon, pay your parking tickets. This link here for our permitting application goes to our existing permitting application. However, next week we have a kickoff meeting to begin the process of implementing our town-wide permitting software. And in addition to that, well, beach stickers online, and we'll have the assessor database available online shortly. Back to the home page. There's a calendar here, and this calendar on the home page represents the calendars of all the departments. In addition to that, if you went to a department page, say planning, they would have their own calendar with their own events. So for example, if I go to tonight, scroll down here, you can see that these are meetings from various departments that show up. And if you click on any one of these links, we'll do this one here, we can get the agenda linked up right there. So, yay. And there you are. And there you are. All right. Many other nice things about this site are that now when I, like many people, view it on my mobile device, it's small and it's created for a mobile device, so it's not this giant thing where you're trying to zoom in on different sections. It's actually does have a mobile version. And it is a work in progress. We are still migrating content over from the old site, and we'll continue to do so and then kind of organize things. And as things come up, we have the flexibility with the site, this platform, to add new departments, new content, as we see fit.
Great. Rick?
Is there going to be a link to the schools
Could
from
be.
this page? That would be great. It's probably one of the most actively visited sites. I was on the new site. I think it's a great site, but I was trying to find the schools, and I couldn't find it, so I had to go back out and go directly to the schools. But I think if you just have a link somewhere on there to the schools would be great.
Okay. I can do that.
Good job. It's very nice to see a modern website.
Anyone else? Oh, all set?
No, that's great. I mean, it's such a change and
So
it's an
good.
improvement, you know, really is.
Good
I think it
stuff.
better represents the town.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Great photos.
So is the calendar being updated? Is that, all this stuff is being updated as we talk? I know a lot of people will go and click on a date and see if that's the night of a meeting or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Is that pretty active now?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Very. In fact, you can, for those that are inclined, you can actually download all the calendar events to your own personal calendar.
Is there a section or a potential in the future, if somebody's looking for, say, the Historical Society, to have like some kind of like area, or like the Chamber of Commerce or the merchants, for at least for people who go to the town website, have an option to go to,
Post something?
not post, but have access to link to other town things?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, we anticipate having lots of links, just like you said, so even though we can't carry their content, the links would be there. And
Good.
as we get into storm season, right now, the link goes right to sort of some standard state-issued how to prepare, but we'll, you know, we have a whole different set of stuff to go up for power outages, contacts, and the nice thing is, because the phones now interface directly with the website, we
Good.
can do those from any location and get alerts out. And the staff has been trained on posting their own agendas and minutes, and other people like me and Bill who post the news and announcements directly now.
Great.
That's good.
Good stuff.
Good job.
Thank you very much,
Nicely
Bill.
done.
Thanks, Bill.
Appreciate it.
So I guess in closing, you see a new website, but in order for this to happen, the town had to have an exchange server in place. And that in and of itself, when Bill just mentioned everybody gets a new email address, all of those people's files and emails have to come over for everybody that had an @town.situate. And, you know, that's almost every municipal employee, of which there is 200. So it's been a Herculean task that Bill has been faced with. And we moved it up about 2 months, because remember the email issue we were having?
Yeah.
We were very close to rolling this out, and Bill had to stop everything and move it all up. And he's been working tirelessly to do that. So this is the website, but the back end of it has been much more time consuming, and he's done a great job.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Appreciate it. Keep up the good work. Agenda item number 9 is an update for the Harbor Community Building, otherwise known as Pier 44, from Kevin Kelly, Facilities Director. How are you, Kevin?
Good evening. Well,
Good.
okay. So I am here to give an update on the improvements and modifications we are making at the community building, so we are able to open the building up to various user groups. So the plumbing has been restored to the bathrooms at the front, the main entry of the building, so the front hallway. That is all back working. We are not done with the improvements to the bathroom. The mirrors aren't in yet, and lighting and so forth. The hot water is now working there. But the plumbing is restored. That, I thought, was going to be the biggest obstacle, but it wasn't as bad as we originally anticipated.
Is that when you go in on the right? When you go in to the right?
The roof should be completed by this Friday, but it'd probably be Monday or Tuesday. We've lost today with weather. The rest of the week, we should be able to get done. But that will be done by Monday or Tuesday. Starting next week, we have some interior sheetrock repair, mold remediation, and then followed by painting. Shooting for the 27th, 29th of November. To wrap that up, some carpentry upgrades to the kitchen area and those front hall bathrooms I just discussed. That should be done by December 6th. The old lounge area on the other end of the building, we're setting up 2 workspaces in that area, and that is scheduled to be occupied on December 2nd. to take into that area. So we're working on that to get that done and giving a facelift there. The carpet bids are due this week, on the 14th of November. We've already picked a product, and we're pretty sure that is available, and hoping to have that installed at the latest November 29th. Continuing with electrical upgrades, lighting, additional lighting, some switch changes, some plugs, and that will be done by the 5th of December. The food work area we are creating should be done 4th, 5th of December. We're adding a sink, 2 or 3 bay sinks so people can clean off dishes and do things, and then a table they can work on, and we'll put a small refrigerator type unit in there. There'll be no cooking, no area for food prep and those types of things. It's just an area that people can work out of and, you know, support their function, whatever they're having. And that will be a corner carved out of the old kitchen.
Okay,
Where
so
we're
it's
putting
where
that.
the old kitchen was, just a piece of it, that.
Just a
the old
small
kitchen was
section
huge.
of, yeah, the
Right.
old is huge, is big, but we're just taking a small piece of it to accommodate that.
And one question, while any of this stuff is going on, would the building be closed at any one time, or can you work with the groups that might be
Right
using it?
now, we're coexisting with the
Okay.
people that are there, but when we do the carpet
Mm-hmm.
and some of the painting and some of the mold things, we've already spoken to Rec and to Council on Aging. We're gonna have to shift around some of their programs.
All right, okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. And the new fire alarm system has been installed. I'm hoping to have the entire space ready by December 13th, and think we can hit that date. And if there's things that aren't done by then, it might be some of the stuff in the kitchen area, or the kitchen work, the food work area. So we'll be able to still go and start using the space and get things ready. We do need to develop a usage plan, outlining what user groups will be able to use it, what fees we're going to talk about using, what the restrictions, regulations are, hours, all those types of things. That still needs to be developed. We did establish a calendar for the building, and it is online on the new website. And if you go to the link for Scituate Harbor Community Building, you can see when the building is being used and when it is open. And then there's a process to apply to use the space.
For town departments.
Yes, the town departments. And then the HVAC system is working now. Not 100% sure it will do everything we need it to do when we upgrade the use of the building. I think it will, but this could be, as we get into better use of the space and more use of the space, that might dictate a few changes that will need to be made in there with doing that.
Questions, comments?
I guess my comment would be, can it get done any quicker? I know that there's a lot of people around this time of year. I know the Santa Stroll used it last year, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people that went through that building there, and it was a great location for it, and a couple other events that use it around the holidays. Are they gonna be able to use it if some of this stuff is still going on?
Yes, we haven't said no to anybody that has used it in the past for things like that. There was a group that wanted to use it for a dance a few weeks ago. It was a school group, but they ended up going elsewhere. But the Council on Aging is having their holiday dinner there on December 15th or 17th. So we'd hopefully be able to get all these things done. I think the carpet thing, we might lose 2 or 3 days of use.
Right. So it seemed, just by writing some of your stuff, I know Marty was too, maybe by the end of November, it would be carpeted and painted.
Yes.
And then all the others, and the plumbing works at that point. So then maybe there could be a little bit more use of the property.
Well, the board has to adopt a
Right.
policy for its, I mean, we get many requests, and we need to be really clear at the staff level. You know, if there's gonna be waivers of rental fees or whatever, because the building is gonna cost money to maintain. And we have an excellent usage policy at the Maritime Center. But before, I mean, we certainly want to get this done as soon as possible, and we'll try to put that on for the next agenda.
Yep.
Because I think there has to be really some clear parameters for us on on the usage of the building, which we want to be as wide as possible and all encompassing as possible. But I would say more than half the requests we get are requests from nonprofits to waive the fee and things like that. And there really needs to be, that is not the purpose of this building.
Well, I would say let's get that definitely on the
Yeah.
next agenda. We've waited way too long to get this building in use. And I'm sure everyone up at this board right now gets questioned on it every month in terms of when that's going to be used. So, and I think the whole town thinks we're behind schedule on getting it done. So the quicker we can get it done,
Okay.
the quicker we can get a policy in place, the quicker we can get people using it, the more value we'll get out of the property.
Kevin, when you said that, like, it's obviously completion date this 13th of December for an example, but you said the kitchen, the area in the kitchen may not be done. What does that mean?
Well,
In
I
other words-
think I'll be done, I just don't have everything lined up there, and
Right.
I think what it means, it speaks a little more towards what Tony was saying, that we can still, like if someone wanted to come in and use the space that they didn't need a kitchen,
Right.
or they weren't doing food, they could still come in and use the space, so
Well, the COA, you mentioned the COA Christmas party, so how would they do that without a kitchen?
they did it last year without a food space at all, they,
all catered
they,
or
yeah, they
something.
just bring the stuff in.
Okay.
But safety-wise, it's fine, and usage-wise,
Yep.
it's presentable.
Yeah, we just have to, the carpet's the big issue, and then we have to make sure the heat works.
Great, well, it's a step forward, so good job. And again, if we can talk about the policy next meeting.
We'll definitely
What's
have
the
that.
date next week?
9.
Today's
2
the
weeks.
26th?
26?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Kevin, thank you.
Now, jumping over 10 to agenda number 11, discussion for a policy of accepting land. Town administrator has mentioned this to us before, and here we have a policy document. Tricia, do you want to enlighten us with this page, these 3 pages are?
I re-included my memo to the board of August 29, 2012, about a policy for accepting town land. The board had a number of questions when we discussed that in August, a year and a half ago. There was not a lot of consensus on the part of the board, I think, to move forward. However, Mr. Danahy requested that this item be on the agenda this evening, so I re-included the memo I sent you in 2012.
August 29th.
August 29th.
I have that.
Right.
Did you have one dated the 12th, or no?
No, that's
That was something else.
something else.
Yeah, that's
Right.
August 29th.
I mixed it up, I put it in the wrong spot. That's why. Okay.
So essentially, just to recap the memo, we have often get requests for donation of town land, and similarly, will the town sell land to abutters of the land or whatever. And the town really doesn't have a clear policy. So back in August of 2012, I contacted a number of communities, listed some pros and cons of what the policy should contain and what the board should consider in adopting a policy. And then I contacted the assessor's office to see how much land we had that was tax exempt already and what that would mean in the equivalent loss from the tax rolls. We still do not have a policy for a variety of reasons, but we have had a couple of requests pending, and in order for us to really entertain these requests, I think they have to have, a policy would be in place, so we don't do it on a case-by-case basis. When we do get the requests now, they go to conservation to see if there's any interest for them. They're usually very, very small pieces of land. My concern when I brought this to the board's attention last year was that usually they're marginal pieces of land that are unbuildable and just simply provide a tax write-off for the donator. In some instances, you accepted 2 parcels last year, I believe, that enlarged, well, didn't enlarge, but enhanced conservation land that we already had that the land abutted.
And somewhere in here, I thought I read earlier that recommend town meeting. That could be in our policy to go before a town meeting, and that just seems like.
That seems onerous, although some towns do have that.
I guess my question would be, does it need to be a policy, or can it be like guidelines? Because, like, there's always, I guess you could always make an exception to a policy, I assume. I mean, some of these things make a lot of sense, where people, you know, we don't want to, you know, if it's here or there, this size, or, you know, on non-bendable swampland, you know, we may not want that. But then there may be cases where
Right,
you
in my
did.
experience, it was actually the Conservation Commission that had the policy for even entertaining a donation of land unless it met some specific criteria. So it really wasn't even the board. The issue, I guess, comes up when conservation doesn't have an interest, or, you know, it's not, you know, something that the town wants to acquire, you know, for other than passive recreation.
I'm going to go to Frank if the board doesn't mind, because I had a question for Frank anyway, but go ahead, Frank.
If you don't mind. As Tricia pointed out, most times when people are interested in donating a piece of land, they've come to the commission. And because we, I believe, mostly care and custody of open space. You know, sometimes the thought is, if it's just a piece of wetlands, is it worth acquiring? Obviously, we feel that all wetlands are worth protecting, and if the town owns them, it's better. They may be already protected with state regulations or with our bylaws, but sometimes people just don't have a need or want for that, and they'd like to move it on to the town. It's really, if it's contiguous with another piece of property we already have, obviously that makes it more valuable. You know, sometimes our bylaws wind up making, especially when it comes to like an isolated wetlands, makes a person's property not valuable anymore. They might still be able to do something with the state laws, but because of our bylaw with an isolated wetlands, they can no longer use that piece of property, and so then they have a small tax that's on it, and they'd just like to get rid of that. But once it becomes the town's, then obviously it's better protected. That's how we look at it. We did turn away a couple of pieces. We had some concerns that maybe there was some hazardous material or something on a piece of property. So we, as a commission, try to look fairly carefully at whatever's being offered.
Other than that, would you ever say no?
I can't imagine why we would want to turn something down. It wouldn't seem to make a lot of sense. But again, we'd really try to take a look and make sure that we're not getting burdened with something that's going to cost the town some money in the future. As Tricia points out, it does you wind up losing some revenue. Typically, it's not a piece that has as much, but like people have property that they acquired in the South Swamp, and they don't even know where it is anymore. They get the tax bill, and you can't find it. So they just say, well, why do I want to keep this? I'll just turn it over to the town. Right. But that's sort of contiguous with a bunch of open space we already have, so it's not really a big deal to decide to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Frank.
Well, I think what Tricia's written down here, there's some clear things that you probably do want, and maybe some clear things that you don't want. I mean, our goal is not to reduce the tax base, and that may be good lines for both groups to work off of. So you can.
Well, it would be helpful last week to take a look at it as well.
I don't think we have it together yet. I mean, now it's just notes, right?
Well, it hasn't gone anywhere, and what prompted it is, I think since I've been here, you've had at least half a dozen come before you, but there's some requests that have been pending, and I think those folks are getting antsy about not hearing from the town.
Yeah, I know one in particular, and it's not on tonight's agenda, but the question that's raised is, it's butts of properties that have actually gone to conservation. And there's a possibility that, you know, the issue for us, or at least from my standpoint, is does it go to the conservation with a restriction, or does it go to the Board of Selectmen? At least in this case, there's a possibility that maybe this could be a buildable lot. If it is, you know, it's a possibility for affordable housing. You know, and so it opens up an opportunity. If that's the case, then maybe that's another option that's available out there. I do think we need to at some point narrow it down, because I know this individual's been asking for the past 6 months. And obviously they're doing it for tax purposes, which is not my concern. But the issue of policy, because the other thing I'd like to see done is with respect to some of the lands, this is what I was saying with some of the other restrictions. I think Steve came in with the property off of Elm Street. It's trying to see if any of these properties can create linkage to neighborhoods so that if there's an ability to put a path linking some of these landlocked cul-de-sac communities to other major thoroughfares. I'm not sure you can do that with conservation restrictions. I don't know, Frank, but if you can, that,
Yeah.
because to me, that would be huge, to be able to say to
You can put that
people,
in there.
you know, on Huey Road who may be able to go up to Elm Street and cut down, that's
They're
huge.
pretty close right now, between that piece of, on the Elm Street and then with the Lynn Litchfield pieces and whatnot.
You could put that in the
There'll actually be a
restriction.
nice
Absolutely.
opportunity to have a walking path that runs behind there along that Red Maple Swamp.
And that's kind of my push to see with some of these lands, whether there's an ability to having some trails or something to get people access to be able to see some of the beautiful areas of the wetlands and,
But
you know.
your point that, you know, possibly we should keep an eye towards the buildable piece and get that over to affordable housing.
Right. Well, this one could, because if it gets sewer, then it's buildable.
Sure.
And so, and I think the two lots that abut it would have the same issue if it were, the sewer goes down, which could be another phase. Those are two buildable lots, so, which could help affordable housing. So that was my push, and that was the reason why I asked to see if we could have this discussion, because that's got to happen between now and the end of the December for this individual who may go a different route, which is fine. But I do think we've talked about it enough that maybe it's about time that we use something. Whether this is our guideline, that's great. At least, I'm glad you're here, Frank, because that was my push, is to try to figure out how we can use some of these parcels, open space, to connect various areas in town to make it more convenient for them.
We also, that'll happen with the Hubble piece and the other
Yep.
open space that the town already had. But, you know, the commission can change. I obviously would be a big proponent of affordable housing, but there may be another commission, and if a piece were already in conservation and then
Right.
wanted to remove it, perhaps that's better dealt with in a different way at this time. Then you don't have to try to extract. Most of the times, there's not a conservation restriction on a lot of these little pieces that are acquired. We just sort of take them in, as opposed to the bigger pieces that are acquired by CPC or something like that.
Yeah, this is just, we're talking the little pieces that people come in. Sometimes people only donate them if it's going to be conservation. That was the case in some of those ones last year,
Right, the
like,
two
yeah.
you adopted last
Yeah,
year
they were-
really
they-
expanded a little bit.
They said, hey, we only
But we
want.
have some folks that have donated several parcels,
Right.
and then it becomes, you know.
And then we should just look, we should look at them, as Mr. Danny and Mr. Snow are thinking about. So I'd say a guideline is better than a policy. And if it just maps out sort of the proper questions to ask, you know, is it buildable now? Is it not buildable? Is it contiguous to conservation land? Is it a linkage? And Mr. Danny, he's talking about, and Frank are talking about, some of those basic questions that could help us as a single town government with conservation and the selectmen figure out what might be the best way to go on each individual parcel.
Patrick, do you have like a map, if you will, of an idea of like the Maxwell Trust with the land of the West End? We know what's, you know, open space and reserved, and we can see what could complete a puzzle. Do we have that same type of thing with all these other like parcels? And some of them could be in the middle of a Scituate Brook. Well, that's irrelevant really, because you're not going to do much there. But other areas, you know.
Yeah, with the new permitting software too, with the view permit, that's gonna be easier to identify.
Do it.
which
Good.
parcels.
Because I think that's going to be extremely helpful when people come before us, because then we can say, this abuts already created, you know, land that we've set aside, and maybe we can see something, and maybe, you know, the planner can then take a look and say, you know what, it's a great opportunity here. We can do something down the road.
Yeah, the site plan would be helpful. Also, you know, we have people coming in asking for abatements on it too. I don't know who we send that to. If they have 10 acres and 8 of it is wetlands, do they go to the tax office for that? We get those kind of questions too.
Assessors, they can assess.
Assessors.
Assessors.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should do something to streamline this so we can get this in play. From what John was saying, there's a parcel that we might not have the opportunity if we wait too much longer. Is this something we could accomplish tonight, or at our next meeting, have something, draft up something that we could all agree on? And if, who's to say we couldn't change it or tweak it 6 months down the
Oh,
road?
it's just guidelines.
No, that's right.
I don't think we need a guideline to do this one piece of property, if that's what we're dealing with. I mean, I think Tricia's give us some really good points here.
Right.
I mean, if it's that time critical, we can just talk to these people while we're doing this in the background.
I agree. I think this is great as a guideline, or the way to review going forward. I call it a guideline. It's a good guideline.
Guidelines.
You know, but not as a policy, only because, you're right, policy is subject to change, and at least the guideline gives us something to take a look at for each prospective transfer
So if
conveyance.
this person wants to come before us, right, or submit
wouldn't even
a,
have to
submit a
come before
formal,
us, right.
submit a formal request or whatever it is.
Okay.
And we could just take a look at it and see what it is.
We
with-
holding
with-
that? We're holding it, so you
Yeah,
can.
okay, we'll take a
we
look at
can
it. We've-
agenda it for the 26th.
I don't even
That's
know a
okay
piece of
with
property
the
we're
board.
talking about, so.
Neither do I.
Usually they come in though, and like the woman that was up behind the high school, she came in and kind of explained.
But it might be obvious. I mean, for example, I honestly have no idea what piece of property we're talking about, so I'm just talking purely in theory.
Right.
If they're saying, I only want to donate for conservation, you know, we don't need to get involved in that, I mean, other than the obvious. But this particular property, if they're not, and it's something in there, then we should discuss it, but I don't know what we're talking about.
Let's attempt to put it on our next meeting, 2 weeks. The only thing I might say, and I thought it said it in here, on the flip side, and I think it's gonna require a lot more conversation, was selling town-owned property.
Yeah.
See that somewhere? So, I mean, we could,
That's a whole different ball of wax.
Exactly.
It's the other direction.
We get a lot of requests for those.
right, and that's what, you know, we could talk, I think, hours about that, so. Well,
Good.
could I, do we need a motion, or just?
Next agenda,
All
why
right,
don't we,
okay.
we'll have them come in.
It's fine by me.
12?
Agenda number 11 is, no, we just did that, 12. Budget schedule. To it.
Didn't we just do this?
We're gonna
Yeah.
vote
Budgets again?
timetable, if I'm not mistaken here. I was talking to Tricia earlier today. I guess this was reserved for all the department heads. There's a lot of backup, and I thought it was pretty neat how it lays it all out. Maybe overwhelming for a new department head that might be new in town, but.
No, ask Patrick.
Well,
I was
as,
just gonna say, how about Patrick's input on that?
but as Tricia, you know, explained to me, she'll bring those new department heads into her office and walk them through it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing every year. After that, she might tweak it a little bit here or there. But other than that, it's basically a template. I think,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and towards the back is the timetable. And I had it earlier tonight, if I can find it. I think it's on the top, say the fiscal year 215 budget. If I'm not mistaken, starts with the first date of November 17th. No, I'm mistaken. It's this one here, I believe. Selectmen Advisory Capital Planning Committee's budget schedule.
No, it's 2 pages before that. It says
Oh, then I was
fiscal
right.
year budget and capital review timetable.
All right, that was right the first time.
Yeah. So, what the board's done for the last 5 years is you adopt this schedule. It's been already approved by the advisory committee in terms of the meeting schedule. The one change this year is the advisory committee is gonna meet every Thursday night as opposed to every other Thursday night. We've talked in the past about how the charter deadlines going up to town meeting with an early town meeting are very tight, so that this schedule really needs to be followed, and there's not a lot of wiggle room. So by the board adopting it, then it's easier to have, I mean, not, everybody complies, but it also ensures that all the different timetables that are required of the various departments are met for not only posting the warrant, but also getting the advisory committee booklet posted.
All right, so you need a motion for us on this?
Well, one quick question, do we meet on December 3rd
Yes,
and the 26th?
December 3rd and the 17th, as of right now.
So November 26th, back-to-back weeks, November 26th and then the 3rd?
Yes.
I knew that.
So the selectmen's meetings outlined in the schedule are the selectmen's meetings that are required, and it might require an extra board meeting. Right.
Is that okay with you, Tony?
Sure.
All right, okay. Rick?
My only comment on this is, overall, this is great, but sort of building on something that came up earlier today, and then in the context of that zoning thing is, from a while ago, is I like it when we get things second, because what often happens is we'll get something and all good intentions, we'll vote in favor of something, then we'll find out that we probably shouldn't have, something else will come out after further discussion with advisory, or further discussion with planning, or further discussion or something else, so it's too late for this year, but maybe in the future we could have it, because I'm looking at some of these things, and I see that we're voting a lot of these, it looks like before advisory in some cases.
That's because advisory needs to know how the board stands before it takes its votes on both the operating and capital budget.
Why?
Because the
They're advised-
charter,
they're
the charter
giving financial
requires
advice.
you to submit your approved articles and budget voted to them. It's up here under, let me see if I can find it. You have it. The charter requires the board to vote the warrant articles, which includes the budget, and submit it to the advisory committee. Article 6, Section 6, Article 2, Section 2, Article 6,
So,
Section
all right, okay, cool.
6.5.
All right, so it's all in there. So then the
Yeah.
charter is basically saying that if, despite our best intentions, we vote something that absolutely makes no financial sense, that the advisory committee gets it after that? We don't stand the benefit of the informed input from advisory committee first?
That would be contrary to the way I've ever seen it work in any community I've worked for.
Okay.
People used to like go
Generally-
through them and then all of a sudden at the end, vote them up? at
Yeah,
the-
that's what you do. You have,
Okay.
you reserve, and then, so, and they all roll. So you see them on a Tuesday, they're going to advisory that Thursday. So that would bubble up for you before the board finally votes on the final budget.
Okay.
So basically, we give insight of what we're gonna do to advisory. Advisory then takes these subjects, and then at the end, we vote it up. And being like in February or so, we vote.
So advisory still takes it under consideration, so it sounds like actually advisory is in violation of the charter too, because if they're discussing it without us having voted it, which is fine, that's why I like it, but.
No, we
Right?
don't wanna be in
I mean, that's the way it
violation of
should be.
anything.
No, but you know what I mean? I mean, that's fine. So it seems like it, I guess it sounds like it's gonna work okay. But,
And these are all Tuesdays, aren't they, all of our meetings,
Yeah.
Kim?
Yes.
All right, we used to do some Saturdays, but, all right. Okay.
You want a motion?
Please.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to accept the FY 2015 budget scheduled as presented.
second.
I have a motion, a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Agenda item number 13 is an acceptance of a gift from the Harbor Master's Office, or to the Harbor Master's Office, I'm sorry, from the Steedman family.
Mr. Chair, can I take this one, because I've had some conversations with the permission of the clerk as well?
No.
Um,
I'm only kidding. Go
I've
ahead.
had some conversations with the harbor master about this, as well as recreation and other people.
Sure.
But this is a letter from the Anna Steverman Shea on behalf of the Steverman family and the P.J. Steverman Golf Classic Committee, and it's a very generous donation of $5,200. And I'd like to read the letter if I may. It says, "Dear Mark, please accept this donation on behalf of the P.J. Steverman Golf Classic, Steverman family, and Friends of Scituate Recreation. This gift in the amount of $5,200 is to be spent on the purchase of life jackets and the storage of life jackets in the town of Scituate. And we are happy to be able to provide the support for such a great cause and to promote boating safety in Scituate. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you may have. Sincerely, Anna Steverman Shea." And in ensuing correspondence, the Steverman family also wanted to very publicly make sure we acknowledge the contribution of Mr. Joe McCluskey of Pratt Road, who also had a large financial contribution as part of this $5,200. And the Waterways Commission and the Harbor Master's Office are, as well as Jennifer Vitelli and her team at Recreation are very appreciative of the scale of this donation. It's going to be extremely helpful, and it's obviously for a exceedingly good cause, life jackets and other safety equipment as well.
Thank you, Rick. I just made a quick note to John. Tony was busy. I'm trying to remember how many years this golf tournament's been going on. Frank, any idea? PJ's been gone for quite a while.
Yeah.
It's been quite a while, and it just,
They
this.
just had their event a couple of weeks ago up at Scituate Country Club. I think you're right. I think it was like the 15th year.
And, you know, it's how lucky we are to have a family like this, and the Reedy tournament, same thing. It's just, it's unbelievable. It's really, really nice.
So in the form of a motion, I would move the Board of Selectmen vote to accept on the town's behalf the kind gift of $5,200 from the P.J. Steverman Golf Classic and the Friends of Scituate Recreation. The gift will be used by the Harbor Master's Office for the purchase of life jackets and storage.
Second.
I have motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Rick. Agenda item number 14 is the report for the week ahead from the town administrator.
Thank you. I just have 4 quick items. Given the board's vote under Article 12 above, I just wanted to inform the board that we are into the budget season officially now. Department heads were given budget instructions last Thursday. Capital budget requests for FY15 are due November 22nd, and operating budgets are due December 12th. The town was notified last week by 2 separate letters from FEMA that both the appeals that it submitted met the criteria for meeting the requirements of an appeal, and we expect if they have any questions or want additional information, they'll be in touch with us over the next several weeks. The contract for schematic design for the public safety building has been awarded to Dorr and Whittier, with one of the principals a resident of the town, so quite familiar with the town and its buildings already. The Public Building Commission interviewed several firms. We had 11 proposals at all. They shortlisted that to 3. Dorr and Whittier was the recommended company to negotiate with, and they have already started that work, and that contract's for $60,000. So they'll be working very closely with the police and fire department on the schematic design program elements and what is needed.
Can I just jump in there? Not site-specific, that site and 2 others, is that correct?
Right, 90% of the study will not be site-specific. The town and the RFS did provide 3 sites, the Ellis Estate, the current police station, and the land off of Howlett at the old Hatherley School.
Purple Dinosaur.
Purple Dinosaur. And finally, I've been rather busy the last few months with personnel recruitment, selection, interviews. We completed the manager social services department for the Council on Aging. That's a brand-new position in the Council on Aging budget this year, and that individual starts work December 2nd. The outreach position has been filled, and that will also be starting immediately. So the staffing, actually, the formula grant creates a different kind of position, a volunteer and special events coordinator. So the staffing and resources in the Council on Aging are more than they were in FY14, in FY13, and very much looking forward to have the manager's social services start working to get in the field and identify our at-risk elderly, but also to work with other departments on issues such as hoarding and social service referrals to other agencies to help people in need, veterans, or whatever. So we really expect an interdepartmental approach that this person can coordinate. We're also in the process of interviewing for our new Council on Aging director. Those interviews preliminary will take place on Friday, and DPW superintendent that are scattered over the next few weeks. So lots going on, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Agenda item number 15 is other business correspondence and minutes. Could I start with correspondence? I think there might be one piece if someone wants to jump in and read it. It doesn't have to be you, Marty.
No, was it the fisheries?
No, I got a letter
Oh.
from the resident. This one, sure. Sure, if you don't mind.
Sure. This is to the Town Administrator, Selectmen, and Kevin Cafferty. I'm writing to comment the efforts, or commend, maybe someone else should read it, the efforts on the Town Engineer, Kevin Cafferty. Finally, after 40 years of anxiously waiting, my home was recently connected to the town sewer. It took a long time to complete the project and included new gas, water, sewer piping, as well as repaving the streets. Although there were times of inconvenience which were suffered through, my neighbors and I all marveled at the work ethic and the efficiency and the manner of the team of Albany's workers. Didn't we read this one last week?
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Throughout the process, Kevin Cafferty, our town engineer, remained informative, kind, and attentive. He swiftly addressed our many questions and concerns in a patient, professional, and courteous manner. We are so fortunate to have such a proficient, competent man of integrity working in our town. His management made this daunting undertaking endurable. I personally am grateful to him. Mary Ann Callahan. So, thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Tony. That's all I have for correspondence. I'll accept some minutes from the 29th and 30th and November 4th.
Move to vote to accept the minutes, regular session minutes from October 29th, 2013, and November 4th, 2013.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Move the Board of Selectmen vote to accept the regular session minutes of October 31st, 2013.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. That's it for minutes and correspondence. I'll go to other business. Rick?
Yeah, thank you. I actually do have something to report. I had the privilege of attending the, and being a panelist at a meeting convened by Jim Cantwell and Bill Golden, who's a former state senator, from the National Institute for Coastal and Harbor Infrastructure today up at the JFK Library. It was an all-day meeting. And there were a bunch of really interesting people there. We were talking about seawalls and foreshore protection and everything like that. We had the City of Norfolk Assistant City Manager come up, the U.S. EPA Region 1 Administrator, Kurt Spalding, the former Chief Counsel and Chief of Authorities of the Governor of New Jersey, someone from New Orleans, and disaster management and how they're planning for the future for sea level rise. It was all about assessing and discussing the triple threat of increasing storm frequency and intensity, which is very appropriate considering what's just going on in the Philippines, sea level rise, and other climate change issues. So it was, and I was a panelist along with several other people at the end of the day discussing local as well as sort of national initiatives. And the overall context was there's only so much we can do locally. We've got to get the federal people involved for the scale of dollars that we're talking about and all that sort of stuff. But it was an interesting conversation in terms of discussing what we can do in terms of zoning and environmental regulations, what we can do at the state level financing-wise, and what we can do at the federal level through regulation, FEMA-type issues, and also good old green dollars to help on various things. So it was an interesting meeting. It's the sort of the start or the continuation of many other conversations, but Representative Cantwell, as usual, is taking a real good lead on this. And I will say I was very impressed with the actually international scale of conversation. We had people from the Netherlands there to talk to us about how they handle things, people from San Francisco Bay, how they're handling things there. And it was a very international, national group, and we all got some good ideas about how we can start looking at these for Massachusetts. That's what I did all day today.
Well, thank you very much.
Hence the jacket and tie.
Thank you. Rick? John?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, a couple quick things. First, want to thank everyone for coming to town meeting. I thought it was a very successful town meeting. I think everyone up here and the advisory committee did a great job explaining the issues to people, and I think people voted accordingly, and the outcome was very good. There was about 400 or 500 people there, which is a good turnout for a special town meeting, so I want to mention that. Also wanted to mention the Course Gala, which John could mention as well. We attended that, and that was another great turnout, and they did something really special. They gave out awards to entities and businesses in town that have contributed to their programs. And we sat at a table with Bob Drew, who does a lot of work with them, and just, it was so interesting to see all these different businesses in town that contribute to the activities of the Coors Foundation. So again, like you mentioned, the Severmans earlier and the Reedies earlier, you know, this town just has very high quality people and organizations that really give back to the community, and that was another example of that. And then, I guess I'll get to the sports report. I just wanted to congratulate the 8th grade football team, the Psycho football team. They've gone through the whole program, and this is the last year that you play in this, and they made it to the Super Bowl last weekend and went into overtime and lost on an extra point. But they had a stellar season, and a stellar season last year. And I also want to congratulate the cheerleaders who won a award. They were first place at the cheerleading competitions at Reggie Lewis Center. So that's another great group. They did it as well the prior year. So we've got really good athletics and cheerleading here. And just on the high school level, if you're playing fall sports and it's cold out, you know your teams are doing pretty well. And our girls' soccer team this year had a phenomenal season. They were actually seeded #1 in their tournament. They got to the Southern Division Finals, playing against our neighbor, Notre Dame and Hingham, and they lost in the closing minutes on a penalty kick. But they need, it's the best season I think Scituate girls soccer has ever had, and it was a stellar season. And you know, keep up the good work. They deserve kudos for that.
Thanks. Appreciate that, Tony. Marty?
Yep. Well, Sean and I attended the Veteran Celebration yesterday at the GAR Hall. It was a great turnout. Place was packed. Jenkins School, the kids did some things, and the, was it the Campfire Girls or the Girl Scouts?
Girl Scouts.
Yeah, the Girl Scouts put together a little thing, and it was a nice time. Like I said, really good turnout. A lot of the veterans' families were there.
World War II vets.
World War II vets, exactly. Yeah. That was one thing. I don't know if anybody in town has seen the Scituate Food Pantry. They've got some calendars going around, and basically you get a free calendar. Free calendar. You get a calendar with a $25 donation, and they've been proactive on this because at the end of this month, the beginning of December, the federal stimulus program there's a huge cutback on the funding for the EBT or SNAP program, and it's going to affect a lot of the families in Scituate. So if anybody does see people out there with the calendars, they really, especially this time of the year, they really need they need the funds. And my wife's been very involved in it with a gentleman named Ted Good from down in the Minot area. And Jack Conway's office has been very helpful in selling out the calendars. So if anybody does see the calendars around, the understanding is that the food pantry is going to be really in dire need this year. So,
Marty, where can they get those? I bought one.
Hennessy News has them. I don't have any phone numbers I can give, but you'll see them around town. There's going to be a big push for them. I've got some in my car, you know. So.
Conway has them, as you said.
Yeah, Conway did have them. They ran out, but I mean, the need is tremendous, and both houses of Congress are talking about another cut right now. So it's going to be a tough winter. So. A lot of people, right. And that's about all I have.
Thank you, Marty. I don't have anything. So moving on to agenda item number 6 is we'll be moving into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property because an open meeting law would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. In this case, conservation restrictions. And we will not be returning to regular session.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to enter executive session to consider the purchase and exchange, lease, or value of real estate because an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, i.e. conservation restrictions.
Second. Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.